Due to some prior obligations, so each member of council participates on this meeting. I'm the chairman, Teddy Pryor. Ms. Salisbury, I'm gonna go to item number 1, approval of minutes.
Okay.
November 18, 2021. What is the pleasure?
Move for approval.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion, the deletions or addition? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, ayes have it. We're gonna rearrange the agenda. Item number 3 is gonna be boards and commissions. We're gonna move to that. That'll be our second. What is the pleasure for 3A, B, D, E, F, and G?
Let's take them individually, please.
All right.
A, B, and E, and
yeah.
F, because they're only single
A
applicants.
is single,
C, D.
E is single, and F is single.
A
Okay.
through D.
A through D.
A through D, we have,
Right, but there's only 2 applications.
okay, so, all right, so A, B, C, and D, and E.
A through D. A through D, we are uncontested.
All right, so A through D uncontested.
That would be my motion, that we go on and approve those.
Okay, moving seconded. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, ayes have it. Item 3E is St. Paul District Hollywood seat. Yes, sir. Ms. Johnson.
Mr. Stewart,
All right, Ms. Johnson recommending Stewart. Is there anybody else?
Who are the other 2?
I don't know, sir. Mr. Salisbury, I thought we only had one applicant.
Corey Bullock and Kiva Sanders.
I'll offer Mr. Bullock.
All right, Mr. Bullock and Stewart, right? Ms. Johnson, you said?
that's a Stewart,
All right.
Are any of them here?
Any of the applicants here?
Mr. Stewart.
Bullock and Stewart is here. All right, I'm gonna give you 1 minute apiece to introduce yourself and let council know who you are. So go right ahead, who wants to come up first? So,
Good afternoon.
Yes, sir.
My name is Wilton Stewart, retired Navy captain of 27 years service. The good fortune of having to command 2 Navy warships, each for 2 years, in a combat zone.
Can you please take your mask off and lift that microphone?
Yes, I
Thank
can.
you.
Okay. My name is Wilton Stewart. I'm retired Navy captain of 27 years service, naval service, where I had the good fortune to command 2 Navy warships, each for 24 months in a combat zone. My last tour duty was here in Charleston as comptroller for the Charleston Naval Shipyard. I currently am a part-time instructor, adjunct professor at Springfield College. It used to have an on-site campus here that closed down in 2017. I now teach for them online, and I'm also an instructional designer for Springfield College. In addition, for the last 2 years, I've also taught as a adjunct professor for Voorhees College in Denmark. I have a PhD in human services with a concentration in multidisciplinary services. My specialty is financial management and also multidisciplinary human service activities. I currently have served on a number of boards in the Charleston community. I feel that since I am partially retired, that I should give back to the community by providing those skills that I have been blessed with acquiring over the years.
thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. All right, who else is here?
Please leave your adjunctship, sir, and come to North Charleston High School.
All right, come right up, sir, and state your name.
My name's Corey Bullock. I'm a retired battalion chief with the Olive Palms Fire Department. I have 28 years of experience in the fire service, 23 of those of which is at battalion chief level. I just feel with my knowledge in the fire service and dealing with council and committees and procurement in the fire service that I'd be able to pass that knowledge on and be able to, help protect the citizens and mainly just wanted to put a name to the face, and just if y'all had any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, so who do we have, the 2 names that's been nominated? Is it Bullock and Stewart?
Bullock and Stewart. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
is there a move to close the nominations?
So moved.
Second?
Second, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, each council member gets the votes for 1. Ms. Salisbury, call the roll.
Yes, sir. Mr. Darby,
Stewart.
Mrs. Honeycutt. Bullock. Ms. Johnson,
Stewart.
Mr. Middleton,
Stewart?
Mr. Moody, Mr. Sass,
Bullock.
Mr. Schwiers,
Stewart.
Mr. Werman, Mr. Pryor.
Stewart.
Mr. Stewart will be the nominee.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
can I
sir.
ask Ms. Salisbury a question? When will we have another seat open? But both of those gentlemen were very qualified, and that district really needs all the qualified board we
Believe
can get.
every December, we have a vacancy on the St. Paul's Fire District Commission, whether it's for the town of Hollywood. I don't know when
This
the
one's
next
specifically
time.
for the town of
This one was
Hollywood.
specifically for
And
the
they
town
only
of
have one.
Hollywood. They may have
they?
2. They may have 2. I don't specifically recall that.
Thank you, Mr. West. All right, item number 3F is Disabilities and Special Needs Board, 1 appointment. How many applicants?
Several. We have 2 applicants.
All right, the names are,
Bridget Enos and Kinsey Knight.
is there a nominee for either one, or y'all want both of them?
Is anybody here?
Anybody here? Is Knight, Enos here? All right, well, we just put 2 of them, and each council member gets to vote for 1.
Okay.
Any of them incumbent?
No, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Darby,
Enos.
Mrs. Honeycutt.
Enos.
Ms. Johnson,
I'll go with Ennis.
Mr. Middleton,
Enos?
Mr. Moody,
Knight.
Mr. Sass,
Enos?
Mr. Schwiers, Mr. Werman, Mr. Pryor.
Enos, all right, Mr. Enos goes
Ms.
to a
Enos will
Tuesday
be
night.
the
Mr. Pryor,
nominee.
if I could say, same thing on that one. Both of those were extraordinarily qualified. I had a nice discussion with Ms. Knight. Really, I voted Enos because she has personal experience, and I like that. But, you know, when we talk to Ms. Knight, if we do, I would encourage her to apply again.
And I'll say that that board does have a good amount of turnover, just because there are so many people on the board. And
Ms.
so
Riley, okay, I gotta get.
I could keep Ms. Knight's application on
good.
file, you know?
Good.
Yeah.
All right, 3G is the Library Board of Trustees. We have 3 appointments, and how many applicants?
7.
All right, so is there any nominees for this? All right, Ms. Johnson,
Ms. Riley, Ms. Collins, and Ms. Laguna? Is that the way you pronounce it?
all right, anybody else?
I would like to nominate Louise Allen.
Allen, okay, Mr. Weirman.
I'd like to offer Ms. Luth.
Ms. Luke?
Got it.
L-U-T, okay. Anybody else?
Ms. Robb.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, is there,
Motion to close
is
nominations.
there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And the 2 incumbents are Riley and Collins. Ms. Collins is currently the
That's
chair.
right.
Yes.
Okay. All
Are
right, each
any-
council member get 2 votes.
Are any of these candidates here that they could speak on their own behalf?
3. Anybody, all right, if you want to come up and, before we take a vote? First, well, were you one of the ones that were nominated?
Yes, if I understood how everything went down.
All right.
My name is Jan Luth, and I'm happy to be in front of all of you today. I contacted all of you, so I'm going to be very upfront. I'm a new resident of Charleston County. I've lived here a little bit over a year. My husband and I have retired here. I'm a 35-year museum professional. I retired before I moved here and spent decades working in partnership with libraries through museums in several states. And when I came here, I was committed to be able to use my toolkit in a meaningful way for my new community, and this just seemed like a perfect fit. So I humbly ask you to consider me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else is here that was nominated? What's your name, ma'am? Louise Allen. Okay, yes, ma'am, you come right on up.
Good evening. My name is Louise Anderson Allen. I'm a 49-plus year resident of Charleston County. I have 50 years' experience in public education, primarily in this state. I have a doctorate in curriculum and instruction, and I wrote my dissertation on Laura Bragg. And if you've lived in Charleston for any length of time, you know that Laura Bragg was the first librarian at Charleston County Library when it was founded in the Charleston Museum. I'm committed to serving the public, I'm committed to the community, and I am committed to how a government improves the community through public spaces. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Darby. There goes another
Yeah,
teacher.
indeed, sir. Curriculum specialist,
All right,
indeed.
okay. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Each council member gets to vote for 3.
We've got 6 people in nomination.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, who you got?
I've got Allen, Collins, Laguna, Luth,
Laguna. Okay, that's what I
Riley,
missed.
and Robb.
All right, that's why I missed Laguna. Okay. All right, call the roll, please, ma'am.
Okay. Mr. Darby,
Dr. Allen, Ms. Collins, and Ms. Riley.
Mrs. Honeycutt,
Allen, Luth, Collins.
Ms. Johnson,
Collins, Laguna, and Riley.
Mr. Middleton,
Allen, Riley, Collins.
Mr. Moody,
Collins, Riley, and Robb.
Mr. Sass,
Collins, Riley, and Allen.
Mr. Schwiers,
Allen, Collins, and Luth.
Mr. Werman,
Riley, Collins, and Luth.
Mr. Pryor,
Riley Collins and Dr. Allen.
Riley, Collins, Allen. Okay, I've got Collins for sure. 1, 2, 3,
Riley.
4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. Riley and Allen.
Allen. Okay. So these names will come before us on Tuesday to be ratified. All right. Thank you all for your service, and those who didn't make it, just keep applying. Thank you. We appreciate all volunteers, but thank you so much. All right, we are going to now move down to item 7A, which is 995 Morrison Drive Special Housing Committee recommendation.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir, Reverend Milton.
thank you very much for recommending me. I would like to make a motion that we place a deed restriction requiring attainable and workforce housing to be defined as a result of the future recommendation of the housing consultant on a 3.3 acre portion of the county-owned portion at 995 Morrison Drive.
Second.
Discussion.
May I add an addendum, sir?
Mr. Darby?
I may as well go for the entire gusto, all 6 acres.
Yeah, I would amend my motion to include that.
The 6.5, okay. Ms. Johnson? I second, so the 6.5 is on the table. Any discussion, Mr. Swayze?
I do have a question for the attorney. I mean, the council giveth, in other words, we put this deed restriction on. I'm assuming we can take it away also, correct?
Absolutely, yes, sir.
Okay.
Anybody else? Mr. Sass?
Yes, sir, Mr. Pryor. I see no reason to put a deed restriction on this property. We own it and we control it. And so nothing's going to happen to it unless we decide that something's supposed to happen to it. It's kind of like to me, it's just a useless exercise to do that. I mean, this property is in full control by Charleston County. Nobody else has control over it. We're not going to sell it. Nobody else is going to get in there and get it without Charleston County's approval. I don't see a reason why we would put a deed restriction on it. And furthermore, I'm very concerned. This property went through a long process to be able to get it free and clear. We had a 15 years remaining of a 1-year lease on that property with the Disabilities Board. And we had the probate court, we had a court over there, and we got those services off that property. It cost us some money to get those services off that property. Our staff did a tremendous amount of work, including the legal department and Walt's people, getting all that done. It was a lot of work, and I for one, I think that we need to do what's best for the county with that property. And I'm not sure that taking 6 acres and making it into affordable housing is the right thing. There's no developer with a plan that's shown up that shows how that can be done. But I do think that we should hold the property without putting a deed restriction on it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sass. Mr. Moody?
Mr. Chairman, when we were last discussing wrecking the market value of this property, we had just hired a consultant to help us navigate the process. Ms. Johnson said then, and I agreed with her then, and I still do, that we needed to wait and let this consultant weigh in. Now, all of a sudden, we've got this laughable offer from the city, and then we get a letter to the editor from delegation members, and now we've got it back on the agenda. And since then, we've actually hired Mr. Davis, I believe is his name, to give us some in-house expertise around affordable housing. His chair's not even warm yet. So I don't know what the rush is to hamstring ourselves and wreck the market value of this property without hearing from our experts. I want to hear from these experts, not our expert legislators, who also, I guess, now are county budget experts, who bring in offers to sell the property to their buddy Quadjo Campbell for $1. Why are we listening to them? Let's hear from our experts. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Moody, one correction. This was on the agenda a couple of months ago, and council members kept asking to move it because they weren't going to be here for discussion. So this didn't come up all of a sudden. This was on the agenda, I think it was a couple of months ago. And I think Reverend Milton had a conflict, and Ms. Honeycutt had a conflict, and that's why it was delayed and asked to be put on in December's agenda. So let the record reflect. I don't want it to get out in the news media that this was just put on simultaneously. This has been going on in discussion for months, and it would have been voted on 2 months ago if it wasn't for council members' action for delay.
Mr. Chairman, I respectfully disagree. I remember specifically Ms. Johnson, and I agree with her, saying we should wait and hear from these people. It wasn't on the agenda when our initial agenda came out Tuesday, and then, 24 hours before it pops on, so.
It should have been on the agenda, it was forgot to be put on the agenda. It didn't just pop up 24 hours. So for the explanation, this was on the radar. This came out of a committee recommendation for the Housing Authority. I think everybody had discussion at that time. So it was just not popped up on there on Tuesday. It was supposed to go out on Friday because I sent the email out when I saw the agenda and said, why wasn't this on the agenda like it was purposely supposed to be for December the 2nd? So please get that right. It just wasn't simultaneously put on the agenda Tuesday. Ms. Honeycutt?
Wednesday.
Okay. I want to be clear also, I did not ask for this ever to be put on the agenda. What I asked for is 7B, which is to let this property go out to the market and see what we can develop. And quite frankly, I am astounded by the actions of this council. This is a cooked up backroom deal that has been brought to us by who knows who. And it is really similar to how I think the whole Naval Hospital turned out. And it is scary to me to think where this could go. And here's my biggest concern. When we even discussed putting an RFP out, we got a $30 million offer for that parcel for a multi-use development, which the developer included affordable housing at his own discretion. It wasn't something we were requiring. If we were to take the revenue that could be generated by the maximum potential use of this property, we could bond it off and fund the affordable housing trust fund that you all want to have. And yet we are going to throw that opportunity away with this because this will so undermine the value of this property that we will not be able to do anything in the future with it except for put whatever physical housing can be located on this property. And so I am absolutely astounded by the lack of foresight here, and absolutely will never support this.
I find it, Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
to be quite visionary and forward-thinking. I'm from the city of Charleston, from the east side to be even more specific. And on that side of town, where I grew up, we cannot find individuals anymore in the proportions in which, during those times, that look like me. Certainly, being able to have places that individuals can live and thrive on the peninsula, who can work as regular police officers, firefighters, those who are healthcare workers, teachers, et cetera, they need to be in the community in which their jobs exist. We have individuals leaving the county in order to go other places in order to have livelihoods. They should be able to afford a peninsula site that they can also work in that same area. And so I see it to be very, very visionary on the part of the county, because there is no more land that God is making, and we own that, and we have the right to develop it.
Mr. Swears?
I'm actually open to a element or the possibility of an element of affordable housing at that site. If it works out, I think it's premature to lock that in now because there are too many variables out there. But I'm actually open to those discussions, but I'm not willing to lock it in now. I do fear, though, especially with the density that's possible on that site, I do fear that we're going to end up with some sort of high-density affordable housing unit, much like Joseph Floyd Manor, that hasn't worked out too well. I fear that if it doesn't happen at this location, it's going to happen somewhere else. We're going to think we're going to solve a major part of our problem with this high-rise structure, and that's not going to work out. Just like Joseph Floyd Manor has created huge challenges. I think you spread affordable housing out. You don't concentrate it. I fear what this council might decide in the future if the opportunity arises to indeed concentrate a bunch of affordable housing. I think that's a disservice to the folks that would actually live there if we do that. And I realize I'm speculating, but I do have concerns about what we may do in the future.
Okay, anybody else before we move on?
Oh, yes, sir.
Ms. Johnson?
First of all, I'd like to say that Reverend Middleton made a very good point that God is not making any more land. And in the city of Charleston, the cost of land is probably at the highest point in Charleston County. And we have now an opportunity to utilize a piece of property that we actually own already to be able to provide affordable housing. Now, honestly, I think this is the greatest opportunity we could have. We're talking about having affordable housing in the area where it's on the bus line, where it's going to be accessible to jobs in the area. All of that's right there at this property. And I don't see where else in the city we could come up with a better offer. So for people to be, totally astounded by this, I don't know. The other thing is we have hired a new director here to help us with the housing, some kind of program for providing the affordable housing. And this is a great opportunity now for, I think, Mr. Davis to look at, okay, we're saying we want to have affordable housing in this location, then please help us to come up with some possibilities of what could go there. At least we know we're looking at an area. And if we have the deed restriction on it, this is similar to what we did with the Shepherd property. I didn't think people had a big problem with that. And when it was time you want to take it off, you could take it off. So I don't know why we have all the grumbling here as if we can't decide how we want this thing to go. We can do that. We want affordable housing. If Mr. Davis, I hate to keep calling your name, but if you can help us come up with some ways how we can put some things that give us some ideas, then we all should be open to that. We're not saying we're locked into any particular thing right now, except we want to see affordable housing there. Combination of whatever. So I'm for it. I think we need to move on. This was a recommendation from the Special Housing Committee, and I still stand by that.
Okay, anybody, Mr. Werman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the point that, maybe this isn't totally legally binding and could be probably reversed by this council or future council in the future is sort of a point that cuts both ways. But to the extent that this is viewed as more of a resolution than anything, I'm fully in support of it. And my reading on or interpretation of the reading of the motion would be that the definition of affordable and attainable housing is to be determined later. It's not even clear to me that a mixed, some market units, some affordable units would even be precluded by this. So, I'm certainly happy to signal to developers, if that's what we're trying to do, that, start getting your work together, start submitting things in. But our priorities here are certainly recognizing the fact that there's not going to be any more land, and we are not just going to give up on having working folks living on the peninsula. So that's kind of why I'm ready to support this, and whether it's a substantive step or not, hopefully it at least leads to those. So I'm ready to support this, and certainly in full support, as I said.
Okay, Reverend Middleton, I know you okay. Ms. Honeycutt?
Mr. Durant, is Mr. Davis prepared to address this? From what little he knows right now, he can. Davis, could you weigh in on this for us, please?
Let me ask this question. What is he gonna weigh in on? He hasn't made a decision, what is he gonna weigh in on?
As the subject matter expert in affordable housing, I would like to know his opinion on the use of this property.
The use of the property is not up to him, it's up to this council.
The use insofar as affordable housing
It
goes.
doesn't matter what he thinks the use of this council. The council wants affordable housing, then it's his job to go out, but I will let him satisfy your question, but I think to draw this man into a county council decision is unfair to him.
Mr. Pryor, I believe it is our job to rely on the expertise of staff in making these very decisions.
And I
He has
also-
been hired for this purpose.
Ms. Honeycutt, let's just cut to the chase and be honest. You don't want to see affordable housing down there.
That is not true.
You just said a few minutes ago, you're not going to support anything with affordable housing.
I'm not going to put a deed restriction on this. The
well,
market has generated an estimate already for
But,
it.
So if Mr. Davis wants to answer your question, that's fine. And, you also made some allegations about the Naval Hospital and the backdoor deals, and this could be another backdoor deal. But if you have those facts, future, you ought to just spit the facts out instead of allegations. Allegations are damaging, but if you don't have the facts, you shouldn't make allegations. So if you know something the rest of us should know, then let the public know as well. Let us know here now.
Also, Mr. Chair, Kylon Middleton down here on the
Yes.
far right, I think it's almost unfair to put Mr. Davis in
Thank
such
you.
a position, because normally if we are requiring of staff to report something to us as experts, they would have had time to contemplate that. They would have been able to research specifically the requests on which we've asked. We've sent staff back multiple times based on not being prepared to answer the very specific agenda items that we've had before us. So why would we call somebody up on the fly who was not necessarily prepared based on their own level of preparation, ramping up to this meeting on specific items that could guide our decision and that could potentially weigh in on the decisions that we're making. So I think that is very unfair to ask him to do that at this time. Now, as an expert, he can just talk generally and pontificate, but in this specific thing, I think we should have asked him to prepare himself for that prior to coming to this meeting today.
Ms. Honeycutt?
Reverend Middleton, to address your concern, I did ask Mr. Davis about this, and he has gone through the entire binder of 995 material, and he does have an opinion on this specific project, and I'm asking to hear it.
Well, certainly I had no clue that you had asked
None of
him
us did.
before that. Yeah, I mean, because, oftentimes we're not allowed to speak to staff. So, I don't know.
Mr. Davis, I'm gonna give you
people are
about
able to
5 minutes
ask.
and do a summation. And, I hate to put you on the spot, but, she were asked, so.
Lord help mercy.
Welcome to Charleston County
Not
Council.
how I envisioned addressing you all for the first time. So, I mean, obviously, this is a project that everyone has some deep feelings about. It's been going on for a while, long before my arrival here. And I guess I would just caution the council this way. The provision of affordable housing is a financial calculation, and sometimes we forget that. We have our ideas about where and how affordable housing should be built. But the way that I present that information to a council or to a board when I worked for a housing authority was to provide them with the financial numbers, a financial calculation.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to do this, this is what it costs, and this is what you're giving up. And if you want to do this, this is what it costs, and this is what you're giving up. So I guess my only hesitation about this is that we have not had the opportunity to do that financial calculation. Because there's so many different ways that you can solve an affordable housing problem. And I've seen certain jurisdictions that I've worked for go about it in a deliberate way, and I've seen people run off in a what would I call it, partisan way, and sort of run the ship off the cliff. So I guess my only hesitation would be if I would always like to be able to at least do that financial calculation, to present those options and say, this is what you're asking me, and this is what it costs.
What we're doing today is not gonna preclude you from doing that. A deed restriction is not gonna stop you from doing what you need to do and bring it back to us. And if this council decide to remove the deed restriction because it's not attainable, they can do that.
Okay,
So
so-
nobody is telling you today to go out here and start affordable housing. I think what's on the table is a deed restriction on the property.
But
And
when
after
it's-
after the deed restriction is on the property, then, we can direct you, our staff, or Mr. Rant, to go back and bring out something that would work on that property, whether it be us or individuals out in the market.
I'd like to move to table this discussion until they have an opportunity to do the financial calculations that our expert has suggested, while it has no deed restriction that would impede the value, that is, adjust the financial calculation.
There's a motion on the floor, Ms. Honeycutt, that move the table if you want to do that. That over the steps that, but is there a second?
Second.
All right, let's call the roll. To move the table and, and if you lose on this one, then we just go ahead and take the vote.
Mr. Darby?
No.
Mrs. Honeycutt?
This is a yes to table.
Yes, this is
Yes.
tabling. Ms. Johnson? Nay. Mr. Middleton?
Nay.
Mr. Moody? Aye. Mr. Sass?
Aye.
Mr. Schwiers?
Aye.
Mr. Werman?
Nay.
Mr. Pryor?
No, the motion fails. The motion on the floor is to, the 995, Mr. You already got Mr. Middleton where he read it, right? Call the roll for me,
Yes, sir.
please.
Mr. Darby?
Aye.
Mrs. Honeycutt?
No.
Ms. Johnson? Aye. Mr. Middleton?
Aye.
Mr. Moody?
Nay.
Mr. Sass? Mr. Schwiers? Mr. Werman?
Yay.
Pryor?
Yes,
Mr. Pryor,
yes, sir.
I was trying not to say anything tonight, but, American history is replete with the facts that in this nation, it's always been the case of easy-going socialism for rich people, but hard, rugged capitalism when it comes down to poor people. Whenever it comes down to blacks and the white poor, those two groups have always bore the brunt of rich developers. To the point in downtown Charleston, I don't even know the percentage of minorities, it is so small. And now we have a piece of dirt to help police officers, to help teachers, to help firemen, to help healthcare workers, and we are saying, let's go to the highest bidder. Here we are putting dollars over people's lives who need to be where they work. I've got a student who has to go away to Folly Beach to work. $16 one way. And by the time she spends $32 a day, she has lost her money for what she has earned because she is a poor person trying to make it. So this gentrification has really hurt blacks and the white poor, and yet we always want to give funds and rich stuff to rich people. It's time to stop that type of super erogatory foolishness. On this council here, rich people have always had their way, always. Seldom do poor people get a chance here in Charleston County, particularly when it comes down to housing. And this council has an opportunity. A great government is a concerned government. And you are concerned really about the least of these the most. That's what government is all about. We are here to help people, but particularly poor people, because so many poor people, they're not poor based upon attributing that to themselves. They are poor because it's been done to them. And we need to stop this. And there's some of us in the council, we got friends who make money. Because we look out for our friends. That needs to stop. We need to be objective in everything we do, be analytical, and then come up with a creative appraisal. And that's why when he said it's visionary, that's true. So let's learn to help poor people. And I'm talking the lower middle class. We're talking about police officers who put their lives on the line. And that lady doesn't know whether her husband is coming back home. This lady whose husband is a fireman, there's a fire, she doesn't know why he's coming back home. And they're asking for an affordable place to live, and we're saying, no? What's wrong with us? I don't understand that. We ought to be concerned about one another and the welfare of everybody. Rich people can make it. I'm not talking those who make $250,000, $300,000. You're just a paycheck away from being poor yourself. But when these folks can generate $25 and $30 and $40 million, I'm not going to worry about them. They can make it. But that fireman, that police officer, that teacher, that person who works at MUSC or Roper Hospital, they need a helping hand. Didn't mean to preach, but I can maintain my silence on that. It's time to help lower middle class people in Charleston County. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Darby, and I said I was gonna be quiet too, but I'm gonna close at this. We have no problem putting roads and heavy industrial development in these poor neighborhoods. But when it comes down to helping them to try to get out of what they're in, we don't wanna do that. Look at what they did to those people down there when they bring the Ravenel Bridge through there. They destroyed those people's homes and properties for what? In the name of what? Development, and as well, let's move the traffic along. If you ride down Morrison Drive, some of you probably don't even go down Morrison Drive because you get on the interstate of 526 and you don't go down there. Ride down Morrison and East Bay and see how these people are being ran out. With all these big high-rise developments and everything coming in there. Just take a look at it and see, and remember, you, me, and everybody else, one paycheck away from being, in a disaster. Just let sickness or something come in. A lot of people doesn't know what it is to be poor because they didn't come from a poor background. But in my coming up, every major road or every major development came through a minority community. I-26 destroyed Daniel Jenkins Project, Rosemount, Union Heights, Acabee, all those folks. They're passing through these neighborhoods, and then the state folk comes in and put all these bridges and roads for these people's neighborhood. Thousands and thousands of cars coming over there every day, the fumes coming from over there. And we saying, well, we don't want to help poor people. Let's sell to the highest bidder. So everybody got to live with their own vote. Everybody got to live with their own conscience. But if you say you're for affordable housing, you want to help the least, and it's not a middle class anymore. You're either rich or you're poor. Next item on the agenda.
Mr. Pryor, I just want to say one thing here. You reminded me, we did not talk about economic development, and so as we look at trying to put affordable housing at this location, I'd like for us to consider how we can help people get out of the dilemma of just being poor, as we're saying, by having some kind of economic development component built into that same location.
I think Mr. Darby said it well. It's doctors and nurses and police and firefighters. And, here it is now. We talking about 526 that's going to come to help people and destroy, certain poor neighborhoods. We don't have a problem with that, but we got a problem with trying to provide affordable housing to the poor on the east side downtown. That's an oxymoron to me. Whatever a man's heart is, that's where his treasure lies. So, I'm just saying, you can't do for one and don't do for all. We've lost money in many projects we've done here. We still moving on. We want to do the best and what's right for everybody, not just the rich and the poor and the famous. The real estate market is taking off. What? Why? Because they're moving people out. I remember when it was downtown down there, you had white flight, they all left. They went into the suburb, they went out into the country. We walked down there and cleaned up that neighborhood, CPAD along Mr. Darby and I and some of these courageous men. And I told Mr. Darby there, and I said, Mr. Darby, I guarantee you in 15 to 20 years, these folks won't be living here because you cleaned it up for the other people to come back. Now they're coming back in droves. And we don't want the people who originally stayed down there to live down there. That's what I'm looking at. Let's keep some people down that actually lived down there before. The folks in Corey, look at what they did down there. That's the biggest gentrification they had down there, and they're still doing more. So, I've said my 2 cents. Let's move to the next item, item number B, if you wanted to talk about
Chairman.
RFP.
Yes, sir. I would like to move that we put out an RFP for the sale of all 6 acres prior to any deed restriction being put on, and at the same time instruct staff to conduct the financial calculus that will help us to understand better how it is that we should handle this property.
I'll second that.
There's a second.
Yes, sir.
Okay, any discussion? Call the roll, Ms. Summer.
I'm not sure I understand exactly.
I don't understand it either, Mr. Swears. It's just a backdoor way of trying to say, let's sell the property without the deed restriction. That's basically what she's saying.
So we want to entertain
A motion to sell the property.
proposals before the deed restriction is put on.
But it won't be for affordable housing, right?
So it'll be for whatever is proposed.
Right.
It won't exclude it.
No, that's fine, Ms. Salisbury, call the roll.
Yes, sir. Mr. Darby's absent. Mrs. Honeycutt?
Aye.
Ms. Johnson?
Nay.
Mr. Middleton? Mr. Moody?
Aye.
Mr. Sass?
Aye.
Mr. Schwiers?
Aye.
Mr. Werman? Mr. Pryor?
No, the motion dies. All right, we move on down to item number 2, which is sheriff's renaming of the juvenile center. She wants to name it, I think, the Charleston County Juvenile Center.
Yes, sir, that's it.
That's what it is. There a motion to move forward with that?
Move.
Is there a second? Second for discussion. Any discussion? Ms. Salisbury, call the roll.
Mr. Pryor?
Yes,
It wasn't seconded.
I seconded.
Sorry.
I do have a question. I'd like to know what she wants to name it.
Charleston County Juvenile Center. That's what was on the email.
So take the word
County
detention
juvenile
out.
Take the word detention out. That's all she's doing, taking the word detention out. Is there anybody from the sheriff office who wants to speak on this? Would you come forward, please? You can-
My name is Abigail Duffy, and I am the detention chief, and the sheriff has asked me to be here tonight to ask you all to approve the name Charleston County Juvenile Center. She is very focused on removing stigma from these children at such an early age in their lives. One of the things being attached to that is being housed in a detention center. When really, because they're in family court, they're not necessarily charged with a crime and are not considered under the statutes to be criminals. And so she is focused on rehabilitation for these children. We are in the adult center focusing on rehabilitation between 18 and 27. So we are asking you all to please consider that they are children between the ages of 12 and 18 that are going to be housed in this facility, and that they should not be stigmatized at such a young age with the knowledge that society sees this as nothing more than a detention center to punish them and forget about them. So she is asking tonight that you drop the word detention only, and just have it be the Charleston County Juvenile Center.
Okay, any other questions for Ms. Duffy?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Are the inmates that are there allowed to come and go as they please?
No, sir. I don't allow anybody to come and go out of the facility.
Then it's a detention center.
Detention implies that there's been a crime that they've been convicted of.
If they're not free to come and go, it's a detention center, in my opinion.
Well, it's a 90-day holding facility, and DJJ handles the punishment.
It's not a daycare center. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, anybody else? Mr. Swears?
Yeah, I was going to make that same point. I mean, detention means detained, and it's hard to argue that they're not being detained. I mean, that's just a fact. However, she is the elected sheriff, so I will go along with her renaming.
Thank you, Reese.
All right,
Thank you.
anybody else? Ms. Thompson, you want to take the vote before you leave? No, that's okay. I'll wait till she comes back.
Thank you.
Okay, well, call the roll.
Ms. Honeycutt?
No.
Ms. Johnson's absent. Mr. Middleton?
Aye.
Mr. Moody?
Nay.
Mr. Sass?
Nay.
Mr. Schwiers?
Aye.
Mr. Werman?
Yes.
Mr. Pryor?
All right, let's get this out of the way.
Yes, sir.
All right,
4, 3, and 2 absent.
All right, so it passes, it goes out on Tuesday. Okay, next is item number 4, financial incentives for the city of North Charleston. Noisette TIF, the city is requesting that the TIF be extended. What is the pleasure? Somebody needs an explanation? The mayor is sitting out in the audience.
Oh, good.
Okay.
Move to approve.
I'm sorry, I need to recuse myself on this one. Abstain, excuse me.
This is the Noisette TIF, not the TIF that you.
Sorry, okay.
This is
Yep.
totally something
Thank you for
different.
clarifying, yes.
Okay. Yes, sir, Mr. Swears.
You know, I don't question it. Back when this TIF was created, it was probably warranted back then, but I do feel like we have gotten very TIF happy. Everything's a TIF now, and I feel like development in Charleston County is happening. I mean, it is. We don't need to grease the skids for development anymore in Charleston County. So I do think if the work didn't get done in the original allotted time, I'm okay with letting it expire, because if it was brand new today, I don't think I'd be supporting it, so.
All right. Is there a motion to move forward?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Mayor Sammy, you want to come up and have a word, please? Mr. Swear, this isn't for new development, for businesses. This is actually for the city. But I'll let him explain it to you. Yeah. It'd be non-taxable.
First of all, let me say I come in peace. The reason we're asking for the extension of the TIF, when this TIF was created, back in those days, everybody paid school tax. Single-family homeowners paid school tax. So the amount of revenue that we were looking at creating out of the TIF was cut when the legislature said you no longer pay a school tax if you own your house, which I thought people that own homes send kids to school too, but whatever. So the revenue that we generated with the new developments more than covered what we could do in those neighborhoods. But it did not cover things that we wanted to do in more non-affluent neighborhoods, such as Liberty Hill, which is the oldest free black community in the state of South Carolina and maybe in the country. We were supposed to be able to go in and do some improvements along that roadway. Well, that money is not there because all the money we generated went to the projects that we were doing. We're in the process now of, we're going to tear down the building at Park Circle. It has been there. It was put there for World War II. We're going to build a new building that's double the size, that serves the public better. We're going to have a new ball field there that's for children with special needs. We're going to put a new streetscape all the way down through Liberty Hill, make it attach more to the community so that it shows the history of who we are and what we are. The school district generates 50% of the revenue that you get on a TIF. Charleston, and we're not asking for the school district to participate in this as well. It's only Charleston County and the city of North Charleston. But it will give us the opportunity to build a new swim complex and gym that caters to the people in the lower end of the city, not unlike we did with Dorchester County for the pool complex we did up in Dorchester County. We're giving up the revenue. I mean, you're getting much more taxes because of that TIF today than when we started. I'll give you an example. The other day, a 2,400 square foot house in Park Circle, young lady walked up, knocked on the door. She's a school teacher. She's a lawyer, not a school teacher. A school teacher couldn't have bought it. A lawyer. And she said, I would like to buy your house. The lady said, it's not for sale. She said, I'll give you $750,000 for it. She said, it's sold. And that's what we're seeing happening in that area. People, we've got more business license fees coming in. We've got more taxes that are coming in from the retail market that's been created in that area. This is honoring more of what we promised to other neighborhoods that they were going to benefit out of the TIF. At that time, we didn't know the school district was going to be pulled out. And that's the only reason we're asking for the extension. It will help create a better quality of life, which was one of the purposes. I mean, the neighborhoods that were created out of it, they're doing great. The values of all the property surrounding it, we're all benefiting from that. But the areas that we wanted to be a beneficiary were pulled out because the schools were pulled out. The school tax was pulled out on us on homeowner-occupied properties. And that's the whole reason we're before you. If you don't do the TIF, by God, we're going to make it work some way. It's just going to take longer. It's going to be harder to get done. And we think that these folks deserve their fair share of what's been going on in the city of North Charleston. That's it.
Mr. Chair, may I ask?
Yes.
Just a clarifying question. So this is to benefit Liberty Hill and everyone on that?
It's to benefit Liberty Hill. We're wanting to put underground utilities along the street. We're wanting to put streetscape along that area, and connect it back to close to where City Hall is and Park Circle. It needs to be part. We've had development all around it, but they've not seen the benefit of that development to date.
So let me ask an additional follow-up question. So with the original TIF, when you enacted it along with the school district, why weren't these things top priority then?
Because we had to do the projects within the areas that we were developing that generated the tax. For instance, we had to put new streets, we had to put drainage, everything we had to do. The TIF paid for those things that we built, that we did, because most of those are homeowner-occupied properties.
Thank you.
Mr. Swears.
Just one last comment. I guess I wish Mr. Darby was here because I have a feeling he would appreciate my comment. But once you make all these improvements within these communities, you know what's going to happen.
But if you don't, you know what's gonna happen. So it's a catch-catch situation. If you don't,
It's a
they're gonna be
quagmire.
dilapidated.
It's a quagmire.
Right, it's a quagmire, so I mean,
But let me say this, one of the problems that we have in neighborhoods like Union Heights, Liberty Hill, as the young people grow up, they move away because we haven't done what it takes to make those neighborhoods more livable. You would see an investment by young African Americans and Caucasians moving into those areas and living together, harmonious. The atmosphere is there for them to do it. The atmosphere is there as far as acceptance of each other and working together. What we don't have is the atmosphere of a nice place to pull into and live. And we want to make sure that that happens to give that neighborhood an opportunity to be the best it can be.
anybody else before the mayor leaves? Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank y'all very much.
Ms. Salisbury, call the roll.
Yes, sir.
This is to approve the TIF.
Yes, sir. Ms. Honeycutt? Aye. Ms. Johnson?
Aye.
Mr. Middleton? Aye. Mr. Moody?
Aye.
Mr. Sass?
Aye.
Mr. Schwiers?
Nay.
Mr. Werman? Aye. Mr. Pryor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
This will move on to Tuesday. Okay, now we go to item number 5, which is general service, decorate items, Commissioner of Public Works easement on Corrections Campus. What is the pleasure?
Move for approval, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second? Okay, second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, ayes have it. Item number 6 is Housing Stability Initiatives. 6A is shelter funding contract with Neighbors Together. Request to approve. What is the pleasure?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moving second. Any discussion? Mr. Swears.
I guess Mr. Durant would be the one. Give me an explanation on exactly what we're doing here. I know it's the city of Charleston, city of North Charleston, and they're asking us to partner. And who is this other party?
Mr. Swears, Neighbors Together was formerly Tri-County Family Ministries in the North area. And all of this is tied back, if I may remind you all, to the strategic plan that we did with the Riley Center for the ARPA funds. And then in August, you all appropriated money to go to the work of developing a homeless shelter and purchasing some affordable scattered site housing. So both of these things are tied back to that agreement and fund allocation. This specific organization has agreed to work toward putting a women's and children's shelter in the north area. And the 3 municipalities that you named have been meeting and participating in a decision and a plan to invest in helping them purchase a property. So this basically just designates, for transparency's sake, the money that's associated with this, which organization it would go to, because that's the obligation that you all have to do since you appropriated the money back in August.
And this is a nonprofit?
It is,
Yeah,
yes.
I guess I worry a little bit. I mean, this is the nonprofit of choice. And we've had, since I've been on council, we've had some discussions about who do we fund, who don't we fund, and we've had some very heated discussions on who we do and do not fund.
Mm-hmm.
And this one is just kind of happening, and I don't know, it makes me a little bit uneasy. I don't doubt it's a great program, and it is, I guess, the federal funds is what we're actually dedicating, and we have 2 great partners in the city of North Charleston, and the city of Charleston. But I think it's a slippery slope, though. We've kind of been down this road, and it worries me a little bit. Maybe we're forgetting the past.
Mr. Moody?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Just a couple questions. I think I'm okay with this, but the 2 cities, Mr. Durant, what have they been talking about as far as financial commitments go? I don't, if they haven't approved it, then so be it, but what numbers have been throwing around?
Sure. So the numbers that have been being talked about for the purchase of a property, should a property enter into contract. So this is that fine line of if the nonprofit enters into a contract to purchase the agreement, into a contract to purchase agreement. The discussion was that Charleston County and North Charleston about a million there and abouts, and then the city of Charleston, the discussion in the meetings, not at a public council meeting, was about 500,000. The nonprofit itself also, because of its board of directors, has corporate contributions that they're bringing to the table. So some of their board members also are talking about the money that the corporate match that will come into that.
So that's good. I like a lot of skin in the game. This is, you say purchase, is this a property with probably a building that maybe needs some renovations, or is this land we're building up? I mean, what are you thinking?
So at the time that this yellow sheet was submitted, there was a property identified, but not a real estate contract that had been entered into. So what we are doing here is we are not handing this money over to this organization until that contract was solidified. Okay. So this just allows, from a transparency standpoint, to notify the public that the action you all took in August, this is the organization that would then be purchasing a property with their board and with their other funds to create the women's and children's shelter in the north area.
Final question on this, and to follow up Mr. Schweers, is this is a one-time purchase? Because I know sometimes we fund an organization and we tell them it's one time, but then they keep coming back and they keep coming back and they keep coming back. So, I mean, has that expectation been set with this organization?
So in all of the discussions, it's very clear that this ARPA money is one-time money, so there is no recurring funding stream in the discussions. And of course, a contract has not been entered into, so we can, if we get to that point that we enter into a contract with the organization, we can do the will of council on that. But the agreement has always been that this is a one-time contract that would allow them to purchase a property, and then we would step back because we're not in the business of being homeless service providers.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And Ms. Honeycutt, then I go to Mr. Swayers.
Just wanted to put out there that this is a wonderful organization. And just a few months ago, the chairman and I stood out in front as it rebranded itself for Neighbors Together. And they actually came to me with this project that I brought to Ms. Johnson and to Mr. Pryor. And so, lest the public think that I am not supportive of housing and meeting the needs of those who are less fortunate in our community, I am wholly supportive of this project, and I appreciate our community development team for taking this on and making it a reality.
Thank you. Mr. Swayers?
Where would this be located?
So, since they've not entered into a real estate contract, and I don't know.
You're looking at two sites, Mr. Swayers.
Okay. I mean, I'm wondering why the city of Charleston's only in half as much as the city of North Charleston, and that may indicate where it'll be located.
They didn't get much of the money that
And this organization,
The North area.
I'm not as familiar as I should be with this organization. Is this a local only? This is all they do is right here locally, or are they broader than that, or what regional, or?
The organization itself has been around for a while, but about a year and a half ago, they hired a new CEO. And they have taken the organization and the board structure in a very aggressive, focused direction to make a difference in the community. And so since that time, and the board consists of a lot of corporate partners. They have aggressively moved forward and actually produced what it is that they have been talking about.
But is it all local? I mean, are they doing this in Columbia and Greenville?
It's
all
here.
local.
I can't attest to what
It's
all they do
homegrown.
elsewhere, but this is all related to here.
Okay.
Yes. It's a local organization, Mr. Swayers, and these people have been there for many, many years. They started out on that corner of Cosgrove and Rivers. It's the Cherokee United Methodist Church.
Yeah.
And they're still down there. And the church is up for sale, but, I don't want to get too much into details because, other people try to steal your plan or steal you. So that's why you don't want to divulge too much where they're going or where they're looking at.
Yeah.
Because, people will come in and then offer more and then try to resell. But I will tell you, Ms. Honeycutt can tell you too when she was there, these people do a whole lot. Financial, they help you, they help you with light bill, water bill, food distribution. They've been there for a while. And most of the elderly people in the church have died off, and you only had a few left. And so they partnered up with these people, and it's a great organization. You got Boeing as one of their sponsors and some more big, time folks. So I think it's a great idea. I think it sends a message to the public that we are serious about, helping women and children in shelters. And it won't be like it's a permanent shelter. It'll be a transitional shelter to move them on. But I will say this, and I'm not trying to rub nobody's feet, but, if you come and you visit these things, you'll know a lot. And I will say that about Ms. Honeycutt. She's been to everyone I've, talked about, the Community Resource Center. She's been to this one. She comes and she sees what the operation is about. And it's more easier to support and help people when you know what they're doing and see the things in the neighborhood that they do. And so, I advise, not advise, but I would ask that y'all go by sometime and just lend a helping hand or just help out and see what you're spending the money on. And this is, you don't have to do it full time, but I think they'll be glad to see you. And Jenny, during the summer, we passed out a whole bunch of food in the hot sun and the heat. And we just outgrew that place, and so you had to move to something bigger. So, Ms. Johnson does it out in the rural area with a lot of people out there too. So, if council members get involved, I think you'll see a whole lot more. But I think this is something great, and I think the county would be better off for it. All right. So there's been, Mr. Sass, I'm sorry.
That sounds like a great idea to me. I like what I've heard. Thank you.
Okay, so the motion has been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, ayes have it. Okay, 6B is the purchase of those 18 scattered sites from the Charleston.
To approve, second.
Seconded by Mr. Middleton, moved by Ms. Johnson. Any discussion or questions on this? Mr. Moody?
Yeah, couple quick ones. Maybe Ms. Durant or Mr. Davis. The request is to purchase these properties. I'm assuming there's going to be some type of upfit or modifications or repair budget. Will you come back to us later with that number?
So we have some other federal funds that are coming to Charleston, so we are working on a plan that would come to council to rehab those houses. The ultimate goal, of course, is to not keep the houses in the county because we're not landlords.
That was my next question. What's our exit strategy?
So that, what I have committed to council is that we will come back once the houses are either rehabbed and ready to be occupied. We can make a lot of choices at that point. They could be allocated to a nonprofit that could manage them. The only thing that we will do before we release them is they will be deed restricted so that they maintain their affordability over the life of the amount of the investment that we put in. And that follows what we already do when we work on houses currently in our departments.
Mr. Moody, to answer your question, what I would like to see happen is, if it's in the city of Charleston, the city of North Charleston, they have housing authorities. We can enter into some kind of agreement with them, let them manage it, and then, but it still would be allowed to us, and that takes us out of the business. And if it's any unincorporated area, I'm sure if it's in North Charleston, we can get them to handle it. If it's in the city of Charleston, because I think I saw the list the other day, you had one on James Island, Johns Island.
Or in West
Yeah,
Ashley.
different, and then you had some in North Charleston, and Latson, I think, too, you had some, so.
No, I agree, Mr. Chairman. I think this is a wonderful project, but we don't need to be managing it. We need to fix them up and get out of the business.
Get out of it. And that's what I think we need to do, but it keeps it affordable. I agree. Yeah, keeps it affordable.
Mr.
Yes, ma'am.
May I just make a comment here? Also to say that while it is a great opportunity for us to maintain these 18 pieces of property as affordable housing and ownership, even though it's not going to be managed by the county. This is an opportunity for us also to help the CRA.
Yeah, of course.
And so with us moving forward with this, then it'll kind of open up an opportunity more for them to be able to get funding to help with the repairs that they need to have done for the housing.
And thank you for that, Ms. Johnson, right, because they'll be able to satisfy their debt and then go back to the high federal government and then,
Yes.
get the funding they need. Okay, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, ayes have it. I think that covers Finance Committee agenda. And I'm now gonna turn this over to Reverend Middleton for the Economic Development agenda. Reverend Middleton?
Mr. Chair, persons who are members of this committee are Ms. Johnson, Mr. Moody, Mr. Sass, and all council members certainly Thank you for being here. At this time, we will consider item number 1, minutes of the.
Move for approval, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. And we do have 2 economic development updates. One presentation coming from Ms. Yarborough from the South Carolina Ports Authority. Welcome, and she will comment this time.
Chairman, thank you, members of council. Jordy Yarborough with the State Ports Authority. Not really a comprehensive update for you this evening. I think many of you, Mr. Chairman, were able to join us for the State of the Port, where Jim Newsom, of course, delivered the address and a full update from the port. So please, if you were not able to attend that recording is housed on our YouTube channel, and I encourage you to dial into that when you have some extra time to watch that presentation. Tonight, I'm here simply to share with you all our annual report. As you all know, we're on the state's fiscal calendar, so we had closed our books back in June. Those audited financials are published in this report, along with updates from developments throughout the year, of course, not the least of which was the opening of the Leatherman Terminal and the announcement from Walmart Distribution Center out in Dorchester County. So just came here tonight to share this with you all, give you my card for those of you that do not have my contact information. If you ever have questions of the port, need information from us, of course, if you'd like to come for tour the facilities, if you have not, welcome you to do that anytime at your convenience. So really, Mr. Chairman, that's all I have for this evening.
Okay, and I'd like to say, Mr. Reverend, I'd like to say, I've been working with her for a long time, and she's gonna be the new, I think, executive vice president when Mr. Newsom retires.
Actually, Ms. Melvin is taking over.
She's gonna be the president, but I think you'll be her assistant.
I'm a senior vice president on the
Right.
senior management team,
Right.
yes, sir. Yeah.
And, she's always good to get information out, and if you call, she'll return your call back, and if you need a tour, she'll set that up, but, I find her to be a nice person to work with, and I think you ought to take her up on it. She leave her card, y'all just call her. Be in good hands. With 2 ladies, we're gonna be in good hands.
Yeah, I spent significant time with Ms. Yarborough out on the ports, and certainly she took me way up high. And so I do appreciate
Yes, if you don't
that.
have a fear of heights, I'll be happy to take you on a crane tour.
Mr. Moody?
Thank you, Reverend Middleton. Ms. Yarborough, thank you for being here tonight, and thank you for all you do for the county. I did have a question about, you mentioned the Leatherman Terminal. There's been a little, and if you're not prepared to answer this question, follow-up would be fine. A little unrest with the labor, and some of the shipping lines have not been calling on or
Yes,
not
sir.
going to Leatherman. Do you have what can you share? I don't want you to violate any negotiations, but what's your general sense of when that's going to clear up and we can start getting full use of the Leatherman Terminal?
Yes, sir. So the matter is before the NLRB. The ALJ at the NLRB ruled in our favor some months ago. That has been appealed to the full board, and there's not been published a schedule for when that will be heard. But that's where the status of that labor dispute lies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you very much, Ms. Yarborough.
Thank you very
Good to
much.
see you. All right.
Take care.
At this time, we have our very own Economic Development Director, Mr. Steve Dykes, and crew, who will come and give us their quarterly update.
Mr. Dykes, would you please keep this to a minimum of 7 to 10 minutes?
Yes,
Some
sir.
folks got to leave to go to some prior engagements.
That we'll do that.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Council members, it's great to be in front of you tonight, and we come with we'll be as succinct as possible and get on through this. But we come with some good topics tonight for you. And just briefly, what I'm going to plow through with Ashley's help is a couple of words on economic activity this year. We're going to talk to you a little bit about what we call the economic development ecosystem. And that's in an effort to get you all to understand a little bit better who we interface with and who we collaborate with. And then we'll have Ashley talk a little bit about our efforts to promote career opportunities. And then I'll close it out talking a little bit about product development. So I'll jump right in. First of all, this first slide you see is indicative of what's been happening this year. We've actually been rocking through a record year in terms of job creation. This is the second largest job creation in Charleston County in the history of your mission, which goes back to 1993. So we're, I think, stunned by it, certainly elated by it, and it's certainly worn our staff out this year keeping up with all this. But on that slide, you'll see a lot of logos that I think give you an indication of the variety of companies that have come in. It runs the full gamut from some local companies that expanded and others that came here, right on down to the big automotive suppliers and certainly an airline when Breeze came in a few months ago. So we're real happy about that. Capital investment, annual payroll, just a quick word about that. Capital, we always talk in statistics, and sometimes I'm afraid that the message gets lost. We're concerned about capital investment because capital investment, in fact, is new tax base. And that new tax base, I think, makes it easier and easier for public services to get financed and delivered. So that's the real significance when we measure capital investment. I think annual payroll, the reason we bring that up so much is that is not only sustains families with these jobs that are brought in, but it also gets respent in the economy, and it reverberates, through additional rounds of spending in the economy. Other jobs get created by smaller companies that are feeding off the ones that have been brought in. And we also see quite a bit of sales tax activity come out of that payroll as it's respent. So wanted to mention that. Job creation, just very quickly, I mentioned this was the second biggest year, and you can see what some of the other pinnacles were. The all-time big year was the year Boeing arrived here in 2009. But you can see the other places where it peaked included the year Mercedes-Benz vans came here in 2015. So again, in the middle of the pandemic, it is a little startling that we could have this much job creation in a single year. This is a slide, I'm sorry.
Go back to the other slide.
Yes, sir.
So there's no, you had a name attached to the peak, early peak, you had a name attached to the next one, or you had Boeing attached to two of them and Mercedes-Benz another one, but no name attached to the last one. I like that. That means that means we're broader than a single name driving that. I think that's a very positive
I think that's
thing.
absolutely accurate. We had 2 or 3 big announcements this year, including TELUS International, which was the big call center at 1,200 jobs. We had a couple of other ones that were at 500 and 300. But by and large, I mean, there's 19 announcements so far this year.
Yeah,
And that,
yeah.
again, is starting to get into record territory.
I think that's a big positive. When we were luring Boeing here, one of the fears I had is we were creating yet another Charleston Naval Shipyard where one employer shuts down and it throws the whole economy down the tubes. And I thought, well, Boeing would have that capability. So I'd love to see a much broader investment. That's good.
Yes, sir. That's a great comment. I think we've got diversification as, with regard to things that have happened for the last 30 years. We've really reached a point where I think we can be a lot more comfortable in terms of, being somewhat recession-proof. And this slide, I mentioned, it's an incredibly busy slide, and you're looking at somewhere upwards of 50 logos up there. The reason we put this together, and I think it was Ashley's idea to capture it this way, I think it's very effective. You'll notice right in the middle is Charleston County, and you should read that as not only our department, but county council. And, this is where the Ashley and the Cooper River come together to form the Atlantic Ocean. You've heard that joke. But we're not trying to be egocentric here. What we're trying to capture is the fact that as the keepers of your mission, we literally have relationships with all 50 of these organizations and probably 50 more beyond it. And the reason for that is just the very act of doing recruitment in existing industry requires us to partner with the municipalities, with the workforce agencies, with the utilities, and then in the most recent iteration, as we work more and more on workforce matters, we've gotten very ensconced with the education community at large, K through 12, the colleges, Trident Tech, just the whole 9 yards. So you can see that as our mission has matured, the relationships have multiplied. And I will tell you that they remain dynamic to this day, meaning that we're always on the lookout for someone else to collaborate with that brings value to what we do, and that is one more arrow in the quiver, if you will. So that, I hope, starts to get a little bit more light shed on the folks that we collaborate with. And I wish I could spend a lot more time on that, but I'll answer any questions. I'm going to move ahead at this point and bring Ashley up. She's the Director for Strategy and Communications for us, and she's got a couple of topics to cover.
Thanks, Steve. Just real quickly, I want to go through a couple of program updates since our last update in August. Steve went through our ecosystem. The hot topic right now, of course, is workforce. So I'm going to kind of discuss that. Our partnerships with workforce development agencies continue to be fruitful. We're building a deeper knowledge in this area simply because it is so important. We're not talking about just the jobs today. We've gone through that chart. We're also talking about the jobs that will be here tomorrow. So since our last update, we continue to connect our businesses with the Charleston County School District's Center for Advanced Studies. We continue to meet with our higher education institutes, particularly College of Charleston and Trident Tech recently, to discuss programming and those business connections related to curriculum needs. But it's also about the jobs, and we are trying to come up with different opportunities to share the good news about what is available here in our county. We've hosted a job fair at the North Charleston Business Expo back in October. We sponsored what was called a Career Opportunity Center. We brought in Ready SC, SC Works, and several of our existing industries to interact and encourage applicants for their positions. But what's highlighted here on the slide is a new initiative. We have forged a better relationship with our library system. And we, over the last few weeks, have done a kind of a tour of drop-ins at our libraries. And we've been setting up tables and meeting with the patrons and sharing the good news. We come loaded with information about our jobs. This in particular is a spreadsheet of 6 pages of jobs that are available at our existing industries. And so we go through those, explain the different opportunities, the diverse opportunities among all of them. And we have, over the course of a few weeks in the 5 libraries we've been at, we've been able to take this and help someone get on the computer and apply for a job. We hope to do more of that in 2022. We think it's kind of more of a grassroots new opportunity to really interact with our citizens to make sure that they know about these opportunities. And because we're there, we can even do a skills match and talk to them about potential training as well. Next is, we've talked about partnerships. They're super important in order for us to fulfill our mission. This is actually even more important in the realm of innovation and entrepreneurship. So just quickly, you all are very familiar with Dig South Tech Summit. It happens every year. We've signed on to participate in their 10-year anniversary coming up in May of next year. It's a wonderful opportunity. If you've never been, please let me know. We'd love to have you out there. But we get to interact with multiple tech and entrepreneurs, promoting not only the Charleston community, but our amazing workforce that can contribute to the tech industry. Next is Charleston Digital Corridor. They opened this beautiful new facility this summer, and we are now more ingrained than ever in the digital corridor's efforts. Just recently, we went, and this picture is us presenting to the tenants of the flagship. Most of these are very small companies with just a few employees. What we're trying to get to them, because we anticipate them growing, we want to be able to help them grow in Charleston County. So we had a wonderful evening with them to just talk about the resources we have available. And then my last slide, I'll start with actually the Defense Summit. From a defense side, that's actually a very important industry for us. We will be visiting the Defense Summit that's coming up next week, actually. It is one of the largest defense conferences in the South. So we're very excited to be able to interact with a number of people who, with government officials and defense industry, to just continue to build that important industry here. But this, I really wanted to highlight the Low Country Local First initiative. One of the programs that we help sponsor is their Good Enterprises Community Business Academy. If you're not familiar with this, it's a 12-week program dedicated to helping entrepreneurs build their business. And what's so great about this program and why I'm highlighting it is because it's a bit different than other, if you will, incubators in the community. And I'll share with you from their marketing materials how they describe it. Who we serve. Our average good enterprises entrepreneur is a 41-year-old mother of two who meets the HUD definition of low income and has no savings to start a business. So this program is different because it focuses on the under-resourced entrepreneurs. So we're very proud to be a partner of this. They have their graduation in 2 weeks. If you're interested, I'd be happy to send you the link. It's virtual, and they're getting ready. After this graduating class, we'll have over 100 people go through this program. So it's just fantastic news, and they continue to do great work. So we're very happy to be involved. I know that was quick. I'm happy to answer any questions at any point, but I'm gonna go ahead and turn it back over to Steve.
Thank you, Ashley. And just to hit the last couple of items in the area of product development, I wanted to spend a little bit of time today bringing you up to speed on that. You know, I think before I get into some of the specific things we've been doing, I want to first cover the fact that product development is basically defined as an attempt to leverage the creation of new sites and buildings. And I want y'all to understand that we engage in this year in and year out, but it is a necessity in cases where the private real estate market has yielded no solution. So if you stop and think about what I just said, we're talking about some of these discussions we have about various parts of your districts that don't have buildings and don't have sites. That's where our problem lies. The thing that we do incessantly and by necessity is that we have a very fast-moving, fast-paced environment where projects come our way, you know, be they expansions by existing companies, be they newcomers, you know, whether we're working with CRDA on their leads, whether we're getting the leads directly, whatever the case may be, it's a very fast-paced environment. We used to get companies that would come to Charleston and spend 2 full days, and we could build an itinerary, we could show them around, we could take them to dinner. These days, they fly in and they do a half-day itinerary. They're back on a plane and out of here before, you know, we know what happened. And so in that kind of a environment, what we have to do is react and respond as fast as possible with real estate solutions. So as you look at these slides, the 3 pictures up here, I'm trying to get across the fact that an existing site in a building is the best situation. This is where we have a chance to win because we have exactly what they're looking for. It's on the ground, and we preview it for them. We can sometimes also stay in the game with a speculative building that's under construction. And by that, I mean, if we've got a building that's coming out of the ground on a timeline that will fit the company's timeline, then we may stay in the game and still be able to compete that way. The thing that we cannot compete with is things that are conceptual, things that are at such an early stage, and they lack permitting or they lack financing and that type of thing. That's a longer discussion. Now, I don't want to diminish that, however, because I think that we have to be looking at that. That becomes tomorrow's project. So it's all dynamic. But I wanted to cover that, and then just very quickly, we've got this year, just to remind you, we've had road projects that took place for the old incinerator site and also signalization project that you just approved that'll take place up at Palmetto Commerce Park. We've also been involved in potential future sites in Lincolnville and West Ashley, and obviously that continues. We'll be carrying that over into next year. And then lastly, wastewater at the Johns Island Airport. And I wanted to spend just a moment on that to bring you up to speed. We started talking back in 2019 with the Aviation Authority and Charleston Water Service about a way to get the Johns Island Airport more developed as a business park. And the impetus for that was Barzan Aeronautical. And as you recall, Barzan announced just lately. So, you know, going back to 2019, I got together with CWS, Aviation Authority, And much to my amazement, there was already a project that was at least in the talking stages about getting the sewer down River Road to the vicinity of the airport. So I continued to meet and work with those two entities, and they have devised a plan that includes an extension from where the main trunk line will be into the airport property and serving the entire airport. And it's been priced at about $1 million. But I will tell you that I have been able to work with the Commerce Department, with Berkeley Co-op, and have been able to raise $650,000 of that total. There's been $200,000 pledged from the Aviation Authority, so we're at $850,000. And we've got a project that'll start as quick as next year, be completed by at least by the second quarter of '23, with service available. And so my next step will be to try to return to you all in the February timeframe. And at that time, my request will be to close out that last $150,000 from the ED fund. And also, I will be bringing an MOU, which I'm developing with the legal staff, between us and the Aviation Authority that would govern this outing, because we will need to control the grant funds, but yet they will be the ones to build the project. So just wanted to give you a heads up on that. And then lastly, I'll close it out by just saying we've got 2 or 3 things going into next year that we're excited about. We're going to continue to work with CRDA and the COG and the Chamber on one region opportunity for all. That will bear some fruit around February. We've got our department reorganization. We've been working very closely with the administrator, the CFO, and the HR director, and hope to get that culminated in the new year. That will free the way for us to hire 3 vacant positions and to begin to implement the strategic plan on a more aggressive basis. And then finally, just wanted to remind you of the industry appreciation luncheon. With, God willing, we will be back face-to-face this year at Trident Tech, and that'll be on February 2nd. But we'll have a lot of good things to share at that luncheon.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dykes. Mr.
One question. I see ILA is open back here, because I see them guys coming in and out. Did we ever help them with the parking lot that they had asked for? They had asked for some funding for us to help them expand the parking lot. So did we ever help them achieve what they were asking for?
Mr. Chairman, we've been in touch with them several times. We're waiting for them to bring documentation to us for reimbursement, but it's really been quiet. And
Well,
so-
yeah, they just elected a new president.
I saw that.
A couple of days ago. So I guess, they were in limbo because they had somebody out of New York, a delegate out of New York running the stuff until they had the election. So I just wanted to make sure, because I think I see them in the morning times, they're leaving, coming out. And I'm going to take a tour of that place probably
I
soon.
plan to reconnect and
Yeah.
see what the status is
Okay,
on that.
all right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Moody?
Middleton. Mr. Dykes, thank you and your team for a robust year, awesome year. Which leads kind of into my question about maybe use your magic 8 ball or something. And when do we get to a point where we say these companies are coming anyway? Okay, I would never advocate with Berkeley County. They've just kind of cut it off, and that's to cutting your nose off to spite your face, because when you shut that pipeline down, it takes years to start it back. So never would I say that. But at what point do we say to a company that's coming anyway, you go to Palmetto Commerce Parkway, we're going to help you all we can, but we don't have anything for you. But if you go to Lincolnville or West Ashley, we've got these incentives for you, instead of just offering them to say, come, we want you here, but here's where the money is for you. How do we have that conversation with companies? And are we courageous enough to say, we think another one's going to come behind you if they don't take it?
It's a difficult question.
One
honestly.
question in 5 parts.
Honestly, it's difficult. It's difficult for me to answer, only because for quite a few years now, we have our lead horse, so to speak, is Palmetto Commerce Park. And I need y'all to understand that that's a part that we put around $30 million worth of interest into, not to mention all the things we did in the beginning just to, create that out of whole cloth, with the help of the city of North Charleston, obviously, but also with the private developers. And so it's a sweet situation, quite honestly, to have that place so successful and have it to be the kind of thing we can preview time and time again and know we can win. So I would be reluctant, as I stand here today, to want to, play roulette very much with that equation. Now, understand this though, we don't just preview Palmetto Commerce Park. I talked about it. It is the lead horse. There's no doubt about it. I think we won 6 times in that park this year out of the 19 announcements. So that shows you that it's very successful. But we preview the best real estate wherever it is in town. And you saw this year, you saw an announcement on James Island, you saw one West Ashley, and you saw one in Allendale. So that gives you a little bit of indication that regardless of how we play it, the cream rises to the top and people find their way to the right real estate eventually.
How much more capacity is out at Palmetto Commerce Parkway? I mean, are we gonna run out of space at some point?
We definitely will. It's like was said earlier, God's not making any more Palmetto Commerce Park either. But that's the challenge, is to try to find what those next horizons are. We were kind of frustrated in our efforts to get something going out on the edge of Ravenel. I still hold out some hope that can eventually happen, but it's an onerous task.
Okay. Well, I just wonder if they're coming anyway, if there's any way to discern that, or if they're expanding anyway, do we, I'm just speaking out loud, thinking out loud, is how do we not just give it away, I guess, and they're incentives, right? They're incentives for behaviors we want them to exhibit. So when do we have the courage to say, you know what? No, it's over here, it's over there, but it's not there. And I'm just thinking out loud.
No, I know, and I'm gonna give that more thought. It's intriguing what you say. I don't want you to get the idea I'm closed-minded.
No, it's a surprise question, but it's just something to consider.
Mr.
Thank
Wortman?
you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Wortman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'm not a member of this committee, but Councilman Moody made me think, another aspect of that is, presumably we have some measures by which we vet folks who are going into Palmetto Commerce Parkway, and if that's our lead horse, we know that we're making sure that the folks who are getting in there are worthy of it. I mean, that's another way that would be sort of filtering that sort of. Are we doing that in some capacity to make sure that not just anybody can get a deal over at Palmetto Commerce Parkway?
We definitely vet the companies and we understand the opportunity before we commit to incentives for them. And so it could be, the answer, once we've vetted them, could be, yeah, we're going to sit back and let that happen regardless, or let it not happen. Or we could say, we like this a little bit, therefore we're going to make a little bit of effort. Or we could say, we love this and we don't want to see it go to Georgia, so we're going to throw a lot at it. So it's that kind of a equation, just day in, day out, year after year. And I try to make the best judgments possible and bring you all the best outcomes that we possibly can, and to do it as prudently as we can. Be as efficient with the incentives and get the most out of them as we can.
Very good. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Johnson?
I just want to let you know I'd like to discuss this later with you all. You mentioned something about engagement with digital companies.
Yes, ma'am.
And so I've been introduced to a group of minorities just looking for opportunities in the digital world. So just want to find out, more what you have to offer and see if there's some way to probably connect. Thank you.
I look forward to that.
Any additional council member? Thank you very much, Mr. Dykes and crew.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, thank you.
Anything from council members before we adjourn? I just got one quick thing I want to say. I was debating whether I was going to say it or not, but it wouldn't be like me if I didn't say it. The reason my passion, and I can see Mr. Darby, and, has been about affordable housing in Reverend Middleton, Mr. Wellman, and Ms. Johnson. but particularly us, most of you up here, with the exception of Mr. Sass, Ms. Johnson, and myself, has never seen segregation. You all grew up in a time where everything was basically combined together. You never experienced redlining. You never experienced going to a movie theater where you had to sit in the top and everybody else sit in the bottom, but you paid the same price. You never experienced a sign that says colored only, whites only. Whites had a lady restroom for ladies and one for men, but colored black folks had to use the same restroom. And when you see our passion is so high, that's why our passion is so high, because we don't want to go back to where we came from. And this gentrification to me is just another point of redlining. We don't want you living here, you go somewhere else, so we'll make it expensive. And so tonight, the passion was high on both sides, but when you see us, this is the passion. Unless you lived it, you know, it's not a passion to you. But that's why we fight so hard, you know, without disclosing our age. Ms. Johnson is, you know, a little older than I am.
Hey, now.
But I'm just being honest. But it hurts your heart.
It's okay with me.
Yeah, it hurts your heart when you see these kind of things, and you know you got people like Reverend Middleton and Mr. Werman, you know, everybody trying to make things right. And so when you see us fight, it's not personal. You know, it's just trying to do what is right. Because when I leave, I want people to say he left it better than he found it, and it would be remiss of me for the people who actually vote for me and elected me, for me to sit up here and not fight for them and say anything. And so that's why the passion was high, and that's why, you know, I'm passionate, and I'm continue to be passionate about issues like this, because if we don't confront it, we'll never get past it. So, and Ms. Craig, thank you for coming tonight as well. But I just wanted to put that out there. I don't want anybody to take it personal, but I don't want anybody taking cheap shots too, but, you know, with speculations, because, you know, that ruins people's careers, and we don't need to be in the business of doing that. If you don't have 100% positive proof, then you shouldn't say it. So with that being said, meeting adjourned.
So, yeah, feels good. Yeah, the other one was feeling kind of broken. So, it's nice. It's beautiful.